Okay, seldom do I need a microphone, but okay, I'll put one in front of me. I'm John Polden. I'm the Vice President of the Outdoor Alliance of Story County. Several other board members are here this evening. We've been doing these presentations for a couple, 3 years now, and we think that's great. We're glad to see that you came out this evening, and thank you for coming out. I appreciate that. As Susan said, we partner with Story County Conservation, the Ames Public Library, and the Ames Historical Society. If you want it, and they will be here filming it this evening, so if you missed something, hey, they contact them and they'll have some archive of it. I'm not exactly sure how they'll do that, but you contact them if you need details later in the future. Some upcoming events we'll be having on March 13th, Wednesday from 7 to 8. We'll have the floral jewels of the tallgrass prairies and other ecosystems will be talked about by Dr. Tom Rosberg. April 10th, we'll have our annual 5-year celebration here at the library. That's the Outdoor Alliance of Story County, so you'll learn a little bit more about us then. On April 14th, Sunday from 2 to 4, Ames reads Leopold here at the public library, and it'll be several readings of Aldo Leopold's works and lots of discussion about similar topics. With that, we're going to learn about the famous history of the 13th Street Dam, which most of you paddlers probably already know about, but there may be some that really don't know that there's a dam out there. So tonight we have Christina Murphy. She is the Assistant Director at the Water and Pollution Control Plant here for the City of Ames. Christina found her passion for water while spending most of her time as a child on the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. She holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in biological engineering from the University of Missouri in Columbia. She's a licensed engineer in the state of Iowa and a grade 2 licensed water and wastewater operator. In her spare time, she's involved with Ames Morning Rotary, Water for People, and coaching t-ball and volleyball. She's married 13 years to her husband Patrick, and she's got a 9-year-old daughter Reagan and a 6-year-old son Mitchell. Please welcome Christina Murphy.
All right, thanks. We'll get situated here. Make sure you can hear me. Although, like John, I have a pretty loud voice. Okay, how's that? Good. All right, great. All right, let's get us switched over.
Is that enough light for you? Yeah. Okay.
All right. I hope if my notes here, sure.
How about if the one on the left it says from beginning?
Yeah. It shows you, but it doesn't show me my notes, but that's okay. We'll figure it out in case I need to reference something. So, like John said, my name is Christina Murphy. I'm the Assistant Director for Water and Pollution Control for the City of Ames. I've been in that position a total of almost 7 years, and I've been back to the city about 5 years now, so 2 stints as Assistant Director. So I'm going to talk, hopefully I can do history justice here. I always get concerned, I I didn't live it and breathe it, and maybe some of you even were here during the 70s during the drought. But thanks to the Ames Historical Society, I can do a lot of research and try and piece all those things together. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the water utility, and then the history of the Lowhead Dam, and then on the future of the Lowhead Dam. So those are how I've broken out this presentation. All right. So Ames' first water supply was back in the 1890s. You can see here there was a group commissioned that we would start the utility in 1872. It was just a water pump, one single water pump at a general store on Main Street. So we had a huge fire on Main Street, and that drove the conception of the water utility. So we wanted to have a well, an elevated tower, and I believe that was back in just over 1900. So the council voted and they commissioned the water utility to start. So you can see here where you're at. You're on East 5th Street. There's a water tower right there. That's the Anson Marston design tank. And we ran our first water main with our first well, with the caveat that you only could use the water for fire protection, which didn't really matter because most people had their own private wells for their drinking water in their houses. But the main purpose of our water utility in the beginning was for fire protection. We had several expansions over time in the 1920s. It was first an iron removal plant, so we just removed iron. And then eventually we expanded to have lime softening removal, the lime softening process, which we removed hardness. And a lot of you still recognize that tower on East 5th Street. It is still there currently. That will eventually be coming down. So we had several expansions over the years. In the 1960s, and then again in the 1980s, we went from a 4 to a 6, and then from 6 to 9. And then ultimately in the 80s, we became a 12 million gallon per day plant. And I say 12 because we really only felt comfortable at about 11. So, and this is a picture of the water utility until recently. You'll note here, let's see if I can get this laser pointer to work here. Here we are behind the power plant. We were here in this location. Here's this 5 million gallon reservoir, and that still is in service today. And we added that capacity. We got to 12 in the 80s, and then eventually in 2007, we began thinking about what the future of our utility should look like. And after a 10-year-long process, where we first evaluated if we should expand on that current site or move to a new site, eventually that was decided to move to a new site. And how many of you have gotten a chance to go through the new water plant? So we moved to the old USDA site, and it was, like I said, a 10-year process in the making. It took 2 failed congressional acts, and then finally a swap of land to actually get the site. So getting the land was really important, and then we had 3 years of construction, and we brought our facility on July 27, 2017. So that's, it's been not quite, about 18 months, going on a little over 18 months into the new facility, and it's been treating us well. So the last plant lasted us almost 100 years. We fully expect this plant to last us 100 years as well. This new facility is a 15 million gallon per day plant, and it's expandable up to 25 million gallons per day. So a little bit about the history of the utility here. Whoop, let's not go too far. Of course, like I said, August 26th, we had a ribbon cutting. We had 1,500 people roughly come through the plant that day. No other utility in the state could ever claim that many people from the community came out. So, we feel very loved at the Ames Water Utility, and we are, a source of maybe a little jealousy from our colleagues across the state of how loved we are. So shifting gears a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about our aquifer. So Our aquifer was formed from glacial deposits. It's an underground aquifer that the Skunk River and Squaw Creek contribute to. We have 22 wells currently, and we have a future well field under construction in 2019. So we'll be bringing 3 new wells online. So a little bit about our aquifer, because that kind of helps explain how we're going to dive into the stand business. Okay, so this is a little bit of a picture, and I struggled to find an updated photo. So here's the water plant. You're kind of right in here. We have a downtown well field, the ISU well field. We have wells behind Walmart. And this is not correct. We have actually 5 wells down here in the sports complex. And this new well field is right about in here. So we will, like I said, be bringing those wells online. And that's important because the history of how we've studied this aquifer has really driven where these well locations should be at. So all the studies that have been done in Ames have been really fantastic in helping us plan for future water supply. Okay, so let's move into the history of the Lowhead Dam. I want you to understand the utility a little bit and about where our wells are so we can try and get into this, why the Lowhead Dam came about. So in 1976, we underwent our 3rd straight summer with lower than average rainfall. So we were starting to have threats to crops. The total precipitation from July to December was 3.4 inches. And normally we would have about 32 inches over the course of a year from that time. So we really were suffering from water, not having enough water. So also during that time is when ISU we started serving ISU instead of ISU having their own water plant. So that was a huge year for the utility to bring more customers, that large of a customer online. So, and they were such a good customer, they were using a lot of water, more than we expected. At 2 million gallons per day, it was quite a bit more than what we had planned for, maybe. And then that led to the decline of the water table. So when you're constantly using water, you're drawing down that water table. And this meant that pumping rates had to decrease in order to protect these wells. If you overpump a well, you're going to collapse the formation and then the well is useless. So you really have to be careful about how much you overpump a well. So February 4th of 1977, Ames Tribune runs a story highlighting how the drought is affecting the city's water supply. It's kind of like this foreshadowing of the next 6 months of what's going to happen in the water utility. It wasn't just us, it wasn't just Story County. There was a huge drought across the state. So 56 of the 99 counties were being affected. As an engineer, I've done a lot with source water supply. The late 70s are one of the toughest droughts that we've had in Iowa, along with the 50s. The late 50s, actually the whole decade of the 50s, but especially the late 50s has been a tough time. So Harris is not here, I don't think, tonight. Surprise. But Harris talked to the Tribune on May 13th, 1977, and he had this paint your lawn green. Quit watering it. Just paint it. And so we were up to 7 million gallons per day, and if you recall, we're getting close to capacity at the plant. And while we weren't at an emergency yet, and we're very careful to really evaluate when we're in emergency. You know, you don't want to sound that alarm too early, because then people don't trust you then in the future when things are really bad. But we asked for voluntary conservation. We asked residents to stop washing cars, stop watering your lawns, make painting your lawn green cool. Okay. Well, that wasn't enough. And there was a lot of debate at the city council about how to handle this. So on June 7th, 1977, they banned outside watering. They said no more watering. Any non-essential usage should be eliminated. And they gave Harris the ability to shut off water to different areas in Ames, should the amount of storage get too low. Can you imagine that? Shutting off part of the city during different times in case it was that low. This is serious times. And so ISU restarted their plant in order to try and help supplement the city. Starting a plant that you've shut down is not an easy task, so that was a pretty serious deal to ask ISU to step up and start their plant over and start producing water. And I'm sure that helped buy a little time. So along this time, Dr. Merwin Dougal, who is here today, have been doing a lot of research on our aquifer. And it is an incredibly studied aquifer, like I said. We've been really fortunate to have Iowa State here. We've just learned so much about our aquifer that helps us plan. Obviously, we've studied it a lot since 1977. But at that time, Merwin was doing some research. We've got these piezometers, these observation wells all over the city, so we can look at how the water table is dropping as we're pulling water. So, and back in the day, now we can put transducers and I can read them at the plant on a continuous basis. Not that everybody had to go out and manually read everything, and we were doing that in some places daily, if not twice a day. So Merwin had done some research, and he found that there's a specific area where it seems like, I didn't have that bigger picture, but the water comes down the Skunk River, primarily a little bit on the east side of the river. There's a huge channel underneath there. And at this particular spot, it turns underneath the river. And we know that it turns and it feeds our downtown wells. You see some numbers here. These are our downtown wells, which many of them are still in service. And there's a direct correlation between the water that's coming from here and going to our downtown wells. So that portion of the river is really recharging that downtown well field. And so we're replenishing at 3 to 5 feet per second. That's a really high velocity. We move water underneath this town like crazy. And we have, if you're a geologist, you think about like thousands of years of water. We have young water in Ames. And so we know that Dr. Merwin Dougal said that, if we could find a way to put water in that area, we could help our downtown wells. And I say that we have all these well fields now, but we didn't have that many back then. We only had the downtown well field, and ISU had their own wells. We didn't have the southeast well field or youth sports complex yet. And so with that research, I met with Tom Newman and Harris Seidel, and they developed this plan to pump from Hollett's Quarry. We thought that they could replenish the Ames wells with that. So the pumping, they set up temporary pumping at Hollett's, and they got permission to do so. They began pumping on July 12th. They were pumping 11 million gallons per day from Hollett's, which was a tremendous amount of water. On the 14th day, it finally reached the sand dam that they built at that location Dr. Dougal had researched. I've got some pictures of what that looked like. They continued pumping about 8 million gallons per day, with roughly 75% of it reaching the dam, which is pretty good recovery. They saw immediate results in the well field. And so it's something I think know what I'm talking about here. But here's Peterson Pits, and we have pumped from there too. Here is Hollett's Quarry, now Ada Hayden. And we were pumping basically out of Ada Hayden into the South Skunk River. Had to travel all this way to where the sand dam is at. So that location on the map is actually in North River Valley Park. We've been there, back behind there. There's a dam there now. So that's where they built this sand dam. So this is what it looked like. What I wouldn't give for those conditions this summer. But anyways, I sent that to the contractor, and I was like, look, this is what it could look like. This is actually North River Valley Park, where they basically dozed up a bunch of sand. They got more sophisticated as time went on and put plastic and everything else down because they had to do this a few more times. But they're pumping out of the quarry across into the river. And with that, Harris would tell you it saved the day. I mean, they were about ready to start shutting off water to sections of town. They were already under mandatory conservation, so any usage that you used above your winter usage, you were paying 9 times the amount to use anything above that, which was a billing fiasco, is my understanding. I learned that we had this great idea, but how we billed people for that was complicated, apparently. But this is what it looked like, the sand dam. So in August, a 7-inch rain occurred and washed out the sand dam. A total of 13.5 inches fell between July 28th and August 31st, ending the drought. The heavens opened up, right, and water came down. So it was a great. I mean, I can't imagine what everybody at the water plant felt like during that time. But if you were to go outside and do a rain dance, I'm sure they were doing it and jumping for joy. They did leave continued water rationing in place until the end of September, despite the rains. Just out of abundance of caution. And like I said, we were billing customers 9 times any amount they were using over their winter water usage. The ISU kept their water system in place until November 10th, and then they shut it back down, and they've been our customer ever since. We do have 2 wells that we use from ISU. Of course, Power Plant has their own wells. Well, we weren't done yet, right? I mean, we got a little here. Unfortunately, we had a drought in 80-81 where they rebuilt the sand dam. And finally, after the 81-82 incidents and the 77, they decided to construct a permanent dam. So because of that, in 1984, a huge construction project was undertaken to put a permanent structure in there where we could put flashboards in times of drought to raise the elevation of the river, pump from the quarry or Peterson pits, and we had those options available to us. So this plaque is still at the Lowhead Dam now, crediting Dr. Doolittle's research. It's in safekeeping right now while we're under construction, making sure that it stays in good shape here. But we'll have it out back at the dam when we're all done. So some constructions of what the dam looked like. Again, I'll tell you why I really wish for this kind of construction weather. You notice there's a pickup truck right in the middle of the river. So they were able to pump around, and they had really great conditions for pouring this dam. I know a lot of you see these wing walls, you recognize those. This is what's underneath the river. This was actually shared with me by Jim Gammon, who is a civil engineering technician still for the city, and I didn't realize that he had been the inspector on the original job, so he found this photo and shared that with me. So I was mentioning about flashboards, which I know our Public Works Department really loved doing. They would take these metal sheets, and they would, well, now I think they're lifting them right here. We got a little smarter later on and lifted them in. But we would secure them to the angle iron that's on the dam, and then we would pool that water upstream. And then if we needed to, if it got to a certain level, then we could pump from Howard's Quarry. So this might be what it looked like before construction started here. So a little bit about Ada Hayden, just a sidetrack. So that we purchased Ada Hayden in 2002. So actually during the drought of 2000, we couldn't pump from Howlett's Quarry, Ada Hayden, because we didn't. It was owned by a developer, so we pumped at that time from Peterson Pit. But in 2002, the city thought ahead, and we purchased Ada Hayden. Howlett's Quarry, and it's now Ada Hayden. So we do have a permanent structure in place, an outlet structure, and then we have a pump that we use in times of drought to pump water. And a lot of you have walked past it. If you've been out to Ada Hayden, you've seen that. We actually can control that gate from the plant. We read it, and when the water starts getting high in the South Skunk River, we shut it in times of flood so that we don't get backwater up into Ada Hayden. And then we can kind of monitor the lake level from that spot. And I'm click happy tonight. So that's a picture of the outlet structure. So, as I mentioned, we've had a few more droughts since then. 2000. And then, so in 2000, we didn't, like I said, had access, and we pumped from Peterson pits. We now have a protocol in place to look at the river levels to decide when to start pumping. And we probably preemptively put up flashboards in the past and started pumping prior to having issues. We can monitor all of our wells now with transducers and watch their drawdown. We have a lot more wells now, and so we're not having to pump. We can rest those wells, which helps recharge them. And so we have a lot more sophisticated protocol in place when we get in times of drought. That's what it looked like in 2012. 2012, we had to pump for almost 45 days. Not consecutively, but. And like I mentioned, we now, the guys used to go out almost daily to do drawdowns in the summer. But now we have transducers, and we can bring that via radio back to the plant. So at any given time, I can tell you what the level is in any well. So that helps us as we're preparing for drought. And of course, we have USGS gauges that help us monitor the river, and we contribute to the funding to that because that's important to us. And monitor the weirs of the dam. So many of you have heard about a project at the Littlehead Dam. It started, I would say, roughly 2007, 8-ish. Piper Wall, who's a paddler, approached the city concerned about the hydraulic recirculating effect that low-head dams can cause. And we've had, not at that dam, but other dams, we've had people die from that. And there was a push for more funding to mitigate those concerns at low-head dams. And so we had about $50,000, and at the time, I had 2 engineers on staff, and I had a couple of these little projects, and I said, okay, who wants this project? It'll be quick and easy. And they like to make fun of me still to this day about how it's not been quite quick and easy, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. And so, like I said, it started at a $50,000 project, but we hit a lot of hurdles. We had some project goals. Things like safety was paramount. So no matter what happened with the design or what we decided to do, our most important thing was to mitigate the safety concern there. However, as time went on, and we had the paddlers involved with us, we realized there are other project goals that we need to be thinking about besides safety. Canoeing and kayaking opportunities for our new paddlers, aquatic habitat. The dam kind of disconnects the aquatic species. A lot of them cannot go upstream, and so by mitigating that, we can have more species, more diverse species upstream as we do look downstream of the dam. So that was important about the river connectivity, water quality. We had some stream bank erosion there, so there's anything that we could do to do that. Increased angling opportunities. I've not, except maybe right now when it's really cold, not gone to the Littlehead Dam and not seen people out there fishing. It's a really nice smallmouth bass fishery, and I think there was opportunity for even more fishing access here in the city. Stream bank stabilization and some of these wildlife habitat and the restoration of riparian buffers. So we all sat down and tried to put together these project goals. We've hit some hurdles. We've hit some hurdles. Some of the hurdles that we've hit have been When we first had it was like 6 boulders, big, huge boulders downstream of the dam. But at that time, nobody was really doing low-head dam mitigation projects. It was like on the edge. And we didn't feel comfortable with someone who wasn't willing as a licensed engineer to sign off on it. So we struggled at first trying to get an approved design to make that happen. So we hit that hurdle. We got that. We got a new design, not the one we have now, but a new design. And some of the issues with that were funding. So all of a sudden the project cost went from $50,000 up. So how are we going to pay for a project that's higher? There was grant funding available, and so we started that process of trying to seek out more grants to help pay for the project. So we hit that hurdle, and then we're getting close, and then we couldn't hit the certificate of no rise, which some of you may not know. It's we're modeling the river to make sure that we're not having any impacts in the floodplain, so we're not causing a higher elevation during storm events. And we couldn't get it modeled with the current design to meet that. And so ultimately, the DNR actually proposed a solution to cut down that south wing wall to provide more storage, and that did the trick. But we went ahead and we hired a consultant, River Restoration, they're out of Colorado, to help us with the design of this project. So it has evolved. It was a rock arch rapids type design, which is sort of what Boone is. If you've ever been at Lincoln Way on Squaw Creek, when we repaired a water main there, that's a rock arch rapids kind of design. In this case, we've got two passages. So what we've designed here is a boater passage with some, hopefully an opportunity for some play for our paddlers in this area here. And this is what I'll call designated the boater passage. That doesn't mean you can't go down this side, but this has been designed from a velocity perspective as a fish passage. So we've really monitored how high the velocities are so that the fish can rest and they can make their way upstream. Also, during times of low flow, you'll see not a lot of water on this side. You'll see most of it coming along this fish passageway. As we got into this discussion with our partners, they talked about bankside improvements. We weren't planning to do that necessarily, but you can't really see the river from the bank as it was, and so people were saying, well, how can we improve that? How can we improve the visibility? And so this bank actually is going to come down a bit. We're going to pull down the grade so that you can actually, this is an accessible walk or accessible path down, so you actually can get to the river. And so we've really done a lot to try and accommodate all the different uses at this location for both the paddlers, the people that like to fish. Wrong button. So you'll be able to portage around and come in and play, all those things. And so you might be wondering, how much is this thing costing? Yeah, I wondered that too. So we had estimates, and we were probably getting, we had 3 options, and then I know a lot of you were part of that process to look at, should we do the full gamut, like the bankside improvements, or try and do that later? And with the support of the City Council and the Parks and Rec Commission, they put forth the extra money to make sure that we could go after the full deal. And so this is a little bit about our funding to date. We've been so fortunate, and I felt like a master's student, again, writing grants. But we've worked with the DNR, we've worked with Story County Conservation. A lot of our partners help provide support letters. I think I put out a call for letters, and 48 hours later, I had like 20. It was just amazing to have that kind of support for our grants. We were able to get just shy of $400,000 in grant funds for this project. And there's a lot of funds from a lot of different sources here. We've got the water utility is putting up money, Parks and Rec is putting up money, local option sales tax. And then we actually, just to seal the deal, pulled in some money from the general fund. But we've had a lot of great partners too, and I want to make sure that they get recognized. The Whitewater Coalition, the Outdoor Alliance of Story County, the Hawkeye Fly Fishing Association, they've put forth some money too, because they've really been great partners in this process. And the DNR, the group there has been tremendous to work with. I know a lot of you know Glenn. He's helping with the construction inspection on this project, and I couldn't do it without him, because I just don't have that kind of time as the assistant director to be out there for hours on a day. But our Parks and Rec helped with some tree removal, and I see my formatting got a little goofy, but all in, we're probably at $958,000. We did, so just a little bit, so engineering, I know those pesky engineers cost a lot of money. One thing we did have that I wasn't expecting was we needed to do a mussel survey. So on the Skunk River, there's several threatened and endangered species. So we did a mussel relocation. We did find 2 different teeny species, 2 mussels of one kind and one of the other. We relocated those mussels to a safe place while construction is going on. And then I say estimate because we're not done with construction yet, but we awarded a bid to RW Excavating out of Prairie City. They've done the Easter Lake restoration project. They're going to be doing the Hickory Grove restoration project coming up. They're helping us, and then hopefully we don't hit too many snafus, and I've got enough contingency, which if you're an engineer, you know that that's not a lot of contingency in construction. So, but we're making progress. Okay, we are making progress. For some of you guys that have been in this long haul, you know that you just got to stick with it, right? And so we awarded that contract back in April. And we said, we're getting submittals, looking at rocks, all those things done. Contractor's like, we're going to start in August when it's dry. Was it dry in August? For a week, it was dry. They literally set up this cofferdam to divide it, starting to set up to divide the river, and we've had higher than average flows. I was telling Greg that we had a graph that showed what our flows have been versus historically, and we're just way above it. And so we did not get anything done this fall due to the flooding. Not really major flooding, but just elevated river levels than what we've ever been used to in the fall. So this is a picture in January. The contractor said, okay, I'm going to start back after January. This is good winter work. It's, like I said, been interesting. So let me see if I can, some of you may have seen this little video that we put together. We're trying to shoot some drone footage and make sure you guys can see what's going on. Let's hope I don't. It is. So let me show you a few more pictures. I promise there'll be more to come, but it's just...
that you're writing a really important email
hold
to a
on.
colleague.
YouTube wants to continue. Usually it's like animals and Ames, so it's pretty cute. But... Okay, so yeah, we're trying. I do like Dan from RW. He's like, if we can get in there, we're going to get in there. And so I like his attitude, E for effort, so far. But we've been trying really hard to build the north side of this structure. And so they're trying to seal it off. There's a lot of water still flowing in this river right now, more than there normally is. So they're trying to build a cofferdam on the north side so we can work. So this is, if you're looking at, here's the sill of the river here. This is upstream. He was trying plastic, not working. So this is a picture, this is just downstream. We still have that hydraulic jump. He's trying to work over in here and push all the water on the south side here. When he does that, he kind of backs things up. he tried to get in, it was like 8 inches thick of ice. So we came back in trying to clear out some of it because we were afraid to quit when we had that warm up, we were going to cause an ice jam. There's a lot of ice on that river that's going to have to move down. So he's trying to clear some ice out. Here we are, this is more recently. I'm showing you this, but I know that you're not going to go in a construction site and think that you're going to go take a look at things. But we have the Copper Dam is over here. Parks and Rec had this old pedestrian bridge that makes it really nice for me to cross the river to look and see what's going on right now. Glenn too, he appreciates that. But they're trying to dry this area up with some concrete blocks. So on that north side, they have to pour a little concrete on the dam. So that's our goal. In fact, I had a conversation today about that. We're trying to pour some concrete to get that first weir set of rock. So we're still trying to pour concrete, and it will be cold, and they will have to heat it. And it is complicated construction. I know a lot of you know that this area is closed off, right? Whoop, I really went the wrong way. Here we go. That area is closed off because we've got a lot of equipment. We haven't had too many. We've had some trucks of delivery of rock, but there's still a lot of rock to come. So, and so we're going to work. The contractor is going to work as hard as they can for the next few weeks before the spring thaw, and then we're out until things get back down. And if you ask me when the construction date, when we'll be done, I'm not sure. I tried to make those predictions last year and it didn't work. And my last name is Murphy, so we know we never try and make predictions. So we're hoping for a fall ribbon cutting now. We already started in June, but I think we're more like a fall ribbon cutting. And of course, we hope everybody can come out and attend that. It hopefully will be in conjunction with the water trail dedication as well. So the Lowhead Dam is one of the first phase of several improvements at the parks. So I know that they have plans to eventually put a drive-through and a lot more parking to improve this. So there's more, you're able to get through more. I know that they're going to replace the shelter that's there now, upgrade that, hopefully bring in some more restrooms. So there is a long-term plan that Parks and Recreation is mapping out and starting to put the funds together for how they're going to do that. What's that motto? If you build it, they will come. We think that people will come and want to recreate in the Lowhead Dam. It'll be a safe place for people to be. We spend a lot of time in Ames trying to protect people from the river, to keep the river out. And we're hoping that this is a unique place where we can invite people in. I love where it's located. I'm hoping that we can get, it's a place where kids can ride their bikes to, enjoy a moment of peace, and appreciate what the river has to offer. I know I had that growing up, so I'm hoping that others do too. So, with that, any questions? Yes?
Can you go back to the slide that shows the illustration with the boats and...
Sure.
I've looked at the one on the sign down there, but I'm very disoriented.
Sure.
So where is upstream? Is it on the top?
Upstream's up here. I know. That's
okay. So
you're going this way.
Okay. So the launch or whatever you call that thing. Wait a minute. Is that a road going out there?
So this will be a concrete path, okay. And it will serve as also the boater launch. It will replace the portage that's downstream.
Okay, so wait, I'm still confused. So that's not where it is now?
No, it's down here a little further.
Okay, so if I'm walking from, let's say from Car Park, going down on the, along the river path, the paved path.
Okay.
Where is that on the right-hand side of this picture?
Right there.
Okay.
Comes up here and you kind of cross over up here.
Okay, and so when people put the portage area, isn't that downstream? Do they then have to go against the current to go up to? the dam area?
So there'll be a couple places. Right now, there's a portage right in here, we'll say.
Where is it?
Let me see my lady pointer over the door. Off stream.
Yeah.
So there is a portage right here, which will still remain. So if people aren't comfortable going through this is not their cup of tea, they want to take it from the downstream and play around, you can still get out. If you're become a person who wants to keep going around and around and around, you can put in, you can come out right here, and there'll be a means to get upstream and see this. You know, you can come in and then try and play again.
So you could actually go upstream the way it's designed if you wanted to.
So you would have to come out here and go around. Now, it's possible. I know I've watched Piper. She comes up from the backside, so there could be some playing back in here, the beginner area, which is where I would probably be. But you could come out. There'll be a little rock outcropping here to try and shorten that portage because we know it's long. To come around and then start to play. Now you can. There's no reason why anybody can't go down this. It's just designed for fish passage. So
Okay, so
may not be as fun. I don't know.
So really what I need to keep trying to focus on is that north is like this way.
North is this way. Yeah.
Which way? Yeah, yeah.
We're over here.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So you notice this wing wall. It does stay in place. I mean, we didn't
Yeah.
take down both of them. This one is already cut, actually, and we'll blend this hillside
Where's the
in
measuring sign?
right there.
Okay. So I guess then if I'm coming from, like Ames Road area down in the boat,
Mhm.
I could be doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then do I go over the different rocks there? I mean, is it like a little...
Yeah. So provided there's there's enough flow, it is designed to pass you now. Before
Okay.
we were telling you to get out and get
Right,
around.
okay.
It is now
I get it.
designed to safely pass you
Okay.
down these channels. Obviously, a lot better through the boater passage because it's a little deeper through there.
Yeah.
But if enough flow, you can go through the fish passage. as
Now I
well.
get it. I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. It is aligned a little awkwardly than what you normally think. So you're not the first person to ask me that.
So you
Yes.
put down the wing wall on the south side, but you're gonna leave the wing wall on the other side.
So the wing wall right now is in place on the north side. You know, that whole money thing. It didn't necessarily need to come down. Access on the north side is difficult for equipment. And so it is intact. Does it need to be there? I mean, if you're going to do this, then you got to address this shoreline here. If you start pulling that wing wall down.
And then
Not to say that couldn't happen in the future, but
You had to take the other side down because of the, we're flooded backwards.
yeah. So it's called a certificate of no rise. It's a permitting thing to try and look at what impact putting rocks and doing this in the river has on the water surface profile across the floodplain. So we needed more storage. This allowed more water to get out. Yeah. And we pulled this bank down too quite a bit, so gain storage there.
Well, should feather back the bank a bit.
Yes.
And remove the honeysuckle. Ooh, great.
Yes. That's
But you took away our observation deck. You can observe on the north side, so you can observe.
yeah. If you walk down, I would be. You can. I have a sign.
There are all kinds of people in there.
I know.
Skiing.
Right. I mean, the contractor's got equipment. He's had a bridge across here. He's got some work. I wouldn't come, if he's working, obviously I wouldn't come too close. But you can see pretty well from that north side.
So where's the plaque gonna go, the thing you're protecting?
So the plaque is on a rock, actually, a boulder, a very large boulder.
It doesn't
So
say where it is.
it is. I don't think it's shown in here, but it will stay.
So you talked about having a way to put partitions in there when you needed to hold water back. Are you still going to have that?
Yeah, great question. So when we first started this, yes, we were. But when I mentioned we were pouring concrete, we have adjusted these weirs to be the batterboard elevation. And so we won't be putting batterboards anymore.
Is that the same elevation as the
It's actually, I believe, a little bit higher than that, because the batter boards would go higher than the angle iron. Don't tell me how much. I'll look at the plans. They're in my bag here.
So does it still have water retention then to recharge the aquifer?
It does. And so this first weir it will still be able to hold back water. That was the design, is to be able to still serve the same purpose. So we will still pump from Ada Hayden and hold that water back. Now, just like the batter boards, we could never go above that elevation necessarily, but we don't necessarily need to. You know, what's interesting that's going to happen, we're putting, I know you're looking weird, but you're kind of way up here are these new wells, and they're in that channel of where that water comes down. There's two of them in what some people call East River Valley Park. I'm still calling it North River Valley Park. There'll be two of them in there, and one on some property that we purchased just right there adjacent. And so there's so much water that comes down that valley, tremendous amount. But I would be curious to know if those wells in really times of extreme drought intercept the water coming through. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because our downtown wells, and they're great, they've served us well, they're not going to be there forever. Wells don't last forever. And so we'll keep them as long as we can, but our higher producing wells are not those downtown wells. They're our newer wells. And so that's still that same research will provide us help in knowing how to site those wells in the future. Will still provide us drought protection. So Nate always asks me, will you always need to pump from Ada Hayden? And for the foreseeable future, I mean, 25, 40 years, we don't know how long the downtown wells will last. We know that at some point they won't last forever, so conceivably, maybe not forever. Yeah.
I grew up with Hallett's Pits, and I wasn't one of the kids who used to go at night and swim out there. I knew that kids did that, but where does that water come from? I mean, they were trying to get gravel or something out of the ground, but is that digging into our aquifer? Where?
It's digging into the same aquifer that's underneath the ground. And so that's why when we talk about the importance of water quality at Ada Hayden, when we talk about importance in our watersheds in general, all of that water infiltrates in, and it comes to our source water, which comes to our plant. And we're very fortunate in Ames. We have tremendous quality of source water. Again, we get lucky with our peers. We just don't have the issues that some of our other colleagues do across the state. We want to keep it that way. We just want to be careful about what we're doing, what we're doing from a land perspective. We sit on development review committees. We look at underground storage tanks. All those things are part of a picture to protect our water quality.
Where's the ISU water plant?
Well, it's not, I don't know where it was at, but it's not there, I don't think, I believe, anymore. And a lot of people think there's water in the water tower at Iowa State, but there's not. It's just for aesthetics. It is. So it's a historical marker because Anson Marston was an Iowa State professor. And in fact, we had one in the water utility as well, but it's not there anymore. But it doesn't protect, it's not filled with water.
So where was it?
The water plant? I don't know. I have to look that up. I'm not sure I know.
I think it was on the north side, on the north edge of campus. I'm trying to remember, but it was, you went to the WI building and then went east a ways, back close to the tracks, or in that general area.
On the south side of the tracks.
Is that
Yeah, on the south side of the tracks. But I think that's where it is, but don't quote me on that. My history gets lost in lots of other history around here. So
the water source is like right there by Mapleville, a large kind of area. So I can't imagine that the plant was too far from that. I mean, you wouldn't want to pump water too far.
I remember seeing wells along that creek that goes on the north
Yes.
side to recreation fields.
Yep, 16 and 17. Those are city wells now.
I wasn't sure where it went to.
Yeah, right now it comes all the way to the water plant.
No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody got a good question in? How about one more? Anybody? Go for it.
Squaw Creek, right by Lincoln Way, you did something similar with a bunch of boulders there. What was that for?
Yeah, so it wasn't me specifically, but it was the city. We have a water main that runs across the river there. That there was some failed sheet pile that happened after a flood. And so they went back in to repair it. They actually got FEMA money for that and was able to do a rock arch rapids design there to address protection of that water main.
Is there a low end dam before that? Or is that just happened?
Well, it was a sheet pile structure, I guess. It basically was a small weir that went over it. And, you know, there's I think it was just a sheet pile.
Wasn't that a measuring station or something?
Oh, it still is. It's a USGS measuring station. I don't know that that sheet pile was in place because of the USGS or if it was in place because of the water main. Now, we have, like, there's discussion in the Hammonds mill that there was some improvements there done because of the USGS gauge. There's a lot of conflicting information about why things were done. So I know Story County is starting to take steps at addressing that particular low-head dam. That we did have a death at that low-head dam. Tom and Ack passed away there, I believe, in 2000.
That's on up north, yes.
2005. Yeah, up north of the River Valley low-head dam.
Christina, this is great. This is a good stretch of the history. The history people ought to really like it. I thought it was great. Everyone, please thank you. People will be allowed here for a few minutes to answer any other questions you might have. And meanwhile, I want to remind everybody that on March 13th, we'll have Dr. Tom Rosberg here to talk about prairies. It's on our website. We're the Outdoor Alliance of Story County. And otherwise, I notice practically everybody in this room knows at least 3 other people. So talk a little bit and think of other things you can ask Christina or others in the subject.
Thanks. I don't know.